Welcome to our deep dive into the French Revolution.
Oh, the French Revolution.
You've given us a really interesting book excerpt to work with here.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to see what we can uncover together.
I think you'll be surprised by how relevant some of these historical insights feel, even today.
Well, the source material jumps right in, arguing that the French Revolution wasn't just about a change in government. It completely reshaped the economic system,
Right?
pushing France away from feudalism and towards capitalism.
Yeah.
But it definitely wasn't a clean break,
Yeah.
which is fascinating to me.
Right.
What are your initial thoughts on that?
It's a great point.
Yeah.
Revolutions are rarely straightforward.
Right.
While the French Revolution did set the stage for the rise of capitalism,
Yeah.
it's important to remember that it wasn't a simple transition. There were a lot of competing interests and ideologies at play,
Oh, yeah.
and the outcome was shaped by those struggles.
The source also highlights how deeply ingrained inequality was in 18th century France. We see this concept of the aristocracy being foreign to the nation, essentially consuming without contributing.
Yeah.
Does this resonate with any modern discussions about wealth disparity, do you think?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The idea that a small elite benefits disproportionately while the majority struggles
Right.
is something we still grapple with today.
Yeah.
The French Revolution reminds us that these tensions have deep historical roots.
So let's paint a picture of French society in the late 1700s.
Okay.
On the one hand, you have the aristocracy
Right.
living lives of privilege, but the excerpt dives deeper, mentioning a sector called the plebeian nobility.
Yeah.
Can you explain what made them so interesting?
The plebeian nobility is a great example of the contradictions within the aristocracy.
Okay.
They held noble titles, but often lacked the immense wealth of their peers.
Okay.
This created resentment on both sides.
Oh, interesting.
The commoners saw them as clinging to unearned privileges,
Wow.
while the wealthier nobles viewed them as a drain on the system. Their existence exposed the growing cracks in the foundation of the aristocracy.
And then there's the economic piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine 88% of your income just to put food on the table.
Wow.
The source really emphasizes how rising grain prices impacted everyday people.
Absolutely. And bread wasn't just food. It was a symbol.
Oh, yeah.
When bread prices skyrocketed in 1789, it became a lightning rod for the anger and frustration that had been simmering for years.
It's crazy to think how a basic necessity like bread
Right.
could become such a powerful symbol of the revolution.
Yeah.
Does anything in our current world evoke such strong feelings about basic necessities, would you say?
I think there are parallels, yes.
Yeah.
Think about access to healthcare
Oh, yeah.
or affordable housing.
Right.
When people feel like their basic needs aren't being met,
Yeah.
it can create a powerful sense of injustice.
It's almost like those issues become stand-ins for a larger feeling of being left behind
Exactly.
or ignored.
And that's what makes the French Revolution so fascinating.
Yeah.
It shows how economic grievances can become intertwined with broader questions of political and social justice.
And of course, we can't forget the demographic changes happening at the same time.
Right.
The source mentions significant population growth, especially in urban centers.
Yeah.
How did this impact the situation?
It added fuel to the fire.
Oh, wow.
More people meant more competition for resources, jobs, and housing.
Yeah.
This demographic pressure exacerbated the existing economic tensions and contributed to social unrest.
So you've got all these factors converging.
Yeah.
Social inequality, economic hardship,
Yeah.
a growing population.
Right.
And then on top of that, you have the rise of the bourgeoisie.
Right. And it's important to remember that the bourgeoisie weren't a monolithic group.
Okay.
Some factions were integrated into the old system, benefiting from it,
Yeah.
while others saw a complete overhaul.
I'm curious to explore this further. What were the different perspectives within the bourgeoisie?
Well, on the one hand,
Yeah.
you had members of the bourgeoisie who were relatively wealthy and had achieved a certain level of social standing.
Okay.
They might have been lawyers,
Yeah.
merchants, or financiers. They benefited from the existing economic system,
Right.
but they also chafed under the limitations imposed by the aristocracy.
So they wanted a bigger piece of the pie,
Exactly.
but not necessarily to change the recipe entirely.
They wanted more political power and economic freedom,
Okay.
but they weren't necessarily interested in a radical redistribution of wealth or the dismantling of the social hierarchy.
And then there was another segment of the bourgeoisie who had a different vision.
Yes. There were also those who were more idealistic and radical.
Okay.
They embraced the Enlightenment ideals of liberty, equality, and popular sovereignty.
Right.
They saw the revolution as an opportunity to create a more just and equitable society, even if it meant challenging the privileges of their own class.
So within the bourgeoisie,
Yeah.
you had this tension between pragmatism and idealism,
Absolutely.
between wanting to reform the system and wanting to overthrow it entirely.
And this tension would play a key role in the unfolding of the revolution.
Makes sense.
The different factions of the bourgeoisie would sometimes cooperate, sometimes clash,
Right.
as they navigated the turbulent waters of revolution.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's not like everyone woke up one day and decided to have a revolution.
Right.
It was a complex process with competing interests and ideologies.
Absolutely.
It feels like the French Revolution had so many moving parts.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder how it all actually kicked off.
Right.
Were there specific events that really pushed things over the edge?
There were a few key moments that served as catalysts for the revolution.
Okay.
The first one that comes to mind is the calling of the Estates General in 1789.
So kind of a last-ditch effort to fix the kingdom's financial woes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The monarchy was facing a severe financial crisis. Right.
And hoped that by convening the Estates General,
Yeah.
which represented the three estates of French society, the clergy, the nobility, and the commoners, they could find a solution.
Right.
But instead of solving the financial problem,
Yeah.
the meeting exposed the deep divisions and grievances within French society.
So I imagine the commoners weren't too thrilled with the setup.
Not exactly.
Yeah.
The third estate, representing the vast majority of the population,
Right.
was constantly outvoted by the clergy and nobility.
Okay.
They felt their voices weren't being heard,
Right.
and they demanded more representation.
Yeah.
This led to the formation of the National Assembly,
Okay.
which declared itself the true representative body of the French people.
And then things really escalated with the storming of the Bastille, right?
Yes, that was a turning point.
Yeah.
The Bastille, a royal prison, was a symbol of the monarchy's absolute power.
Right.
When a Parisian mob stormed the Bastille on July 14th, 1789.
It was a powerful demonstration of the people's will to challenge the old order.
It sounds almost symbolic,
Right.
like they were tearing down a physical representation of oppression.
Yeah.
I'm curious, though, what happened in the aftermath of that?
The storming of the Bastille triggered a wave of unrest across France.
Okay.
The source describes this period as the Great Fear,
Okay.
where rumors of aristocratic conspiracies and peasant uprisings spread like wildfire.
Right.
This fear, whether real or imagined, led to widespread panic and violence.
It makes you wonder how much of the revolution was fueled by genuine grievances versus fear and manipulation.
That's a great question, and it's something historians continue to debate.
Right.
It is clear that both played a role.
Yeah.
The Great Fear highlighted the fragility of the social order,
Yeah.
the deep mistrust that existed between different groups within French society.
And amidst all of this chaos,
Right.
there was a move towards reform.
Yeah.
The excerpt mentions August 4th, 1789, as a key date. Can you explain why?
This was a night of dramatic pronouncements by members of the National Assembly.
Oh, wow.
They voted to abolish feudal privileges, signaling a significant shift away from the old system.
Okay.
It was a moment of immense hope and optimism for many.
But even with these steps towards reform,
Yeah.
it wasn't all smooth sailing from there, was it?
Not at all.
Okay.
The question of what would replace the old order remained a point of contention.
Right.
The abolition of feudal privileges was a step towards equality,
Yeah.
but it didn't address the underlying economic inequalities or the distribution of land,
Right.
which was a major source of grievance for the peasantry.
It sounds like the revolution was just getting started.
Yeah.
And if I remember correctly,
Right.
things took a darker turn with the Reign of Terror.
Yes. The Reign of Terror was a period of extreme violence and political repression.
Right.
The revolutionary government, facing internal divisions and external threats from other European powers, adopted increasingly radical measures to consolidate its power and suppress dissent.
The source really emphasizes the role of war and internal threats in driving this radicalization.
Absolutely. France was at war with several European powers who were threatened by the revolution's ideals.
Right.
Internally, there were counter-revolutionary movements and uprisings.
Mm.
The revolutionary government felt immense pressure to maintain control,
Yeah.
and the terror became a brutal instrument for silencing opposition and enforcing its policies.
I guess it's easy to see how things could spiral out of control in such a pressure cooker.
Yeah.
What role did groups like the Jacobins and the sans-culottes play in this period?
The Jacobins, a radical political club led by figures like Robespierre,
Mm-hmm.
rose to prominence during the terror.
Okay.
They advocated for a centralized and powerful government to defend the revolution and implement its ideals.
And what about the sans-culottes?
Yeah.
Weren't they the working-class Parisians?
Yes. The sans-culottes were the urban working class of Paris. They were known for their distinctive clothing.
Right.
Long trousers instead of the breeches worn by the upper classes,
Mm.
and their passionate commitment to the revolution's most radical ideals.
It seems like they were a powerful force on the streets.
Yeah.
How did their relationship with the Jacobins play out?
It was a complex and often tense alliance.
Okay.
The sans-culottes provided much of the street-level support and activism for the Jacobins.
Right.
They were instrumental in pressuring the government to adopt more radical measures like price controls on essential goods
Mm.
and the redistribution of wealth.
But they weren't always on the same page, were they?
No, there were definitely points of friction.
Right.
The Jacobins, while relying on the sans-culottes' energy,
Yeah.
also feared their potential for uncontrolled radicalism.
Oh.
They sought to channel their energy towards supporting the government's agenda,
Right.
but the sans-culottes often had their own demands and priorities.
So a bit of a balancing act for the Jacobins.
Exactly.
Trying to ride the wave of popular support without being swept away by it.
And eventually, the terror, despite its initial aims of protecting the revolution, created its own internal contradictions and enemies.
Right.
The violence and repression alienated many,
Okay.
and even those who had initially supported the Jacobins began to question their methods.
And that leads us to the downfall of Robespierre and the Thermidorian reaction.
Yeah.
What was the significance of that moment?
The Thermidorian reaction, named after the month in the revolutionary calendar,
Okay.
marked a turning point in the revolution.
Right.
It was a reaction against the excesses of the terror
Mm.
and a move towards a more moderate,
Okay.
even conservative republic.
Right. So after years of radicalism and upheaval,
Yeah.
there was a yearning for stability and a return to normalcy.
In a way, yes.
Oh.
The Thermidorian reaction saw the execution of Robespierre and many of his Jacobin allies.
Mm-hmm.
It also led to a rollback of some of the most radical policies of the terror.
This part of the revolution is particularly tragic, isn't it?
Yeah.
The very people who fueled the revolution were ultimately sidelined.
Yes. It's a recurring theme throughout history.
Right.
Revolutions often devour their own children.
Yeah.
The sans-culottes, who had played such a vital role in the revolution's early successes,
Right.
found themselves marginalized and suppressed during the Thermidorian reaction.
Wow.
Their demands for greater economic and social equality were largely ignored.
It makes you wonder, what are the long-term consequences of such radical upheaval?
Yeah.
How do these themes resonate with contemporary social movements?
It's a question worth pondering, for sure.
Yeah.
I think it speaks to the complexities of social change.
Right.
Progress isn't always linear,
Yeah.
and revolutions, even those with the best intentions,
Mhm.
can have unintended consequences.
It feels like we've gone on quite a journey with the French Revolution.
We have.
We started with these high hopes for a more just society,
Right.
then descended into the chaos of the terror. And now we're seeing the revolution course-correcting, so to speak.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
The French Revolution was a roller coaster of idealism,
Right. Okay.
violence, and ultimately compromise.
Yeah.
And its impact went far beyond those tumultuous years.
So let's zoom out a bit.
Okay.
What was the long-term legacy of the French Revolution?
Well,
Yeah.
did it ultimately achieve what it set out to do? That's a complicated question.
Yeah.
The French Revolution undeniably had a profound impact on France and the world.
Right.
It shattered the old feudal order, spread the ideas of liberty and equality,
Yeah.
and inspired countless other movements for social change.
Wow.
But did it fully achieve its goals?
Mm-hmm.
Probably not.
What do you mean?
Well, while it paved the way for the rise of capitalism and a more modern society,
Yeah.
it didn't create a utopia of equality and justice.
Right.
The revolution left behind a legacy of unfinished business,
Right.
questions about economic inequality, political representation, and the
Yeah.
role of the state that continued to be debated and fought over for centuries to come.
It's almost like the revolution opened a door.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
It created possibilities, but it also left a lot of questions unanswered.
Okay.
The French Revolution was a process, not a finished product.
And it certainly had a ripple effect beyond France's borders.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The French Revolution was a global event.
Okay.
Its ideas resonated across Europe and beyond, inspiring movements for independence in Latin America, reforms in other European countries, and even the American Revolution itself.
Oh, interesting.
It demonstrated the power of ideas to transcend national boundaries and ignite change.
It's incredible to think how an event that happened over 200 years ago can still feel so relevant today.
It is.
Why do you think the French Revolution continues to fascinate us?
I think it's because the questions raised by the French Revolution are timeless.
Oh.
The struggle for liberty and equality, the tension between individual rights and the common good, the challenges of balancing economic freedom with social justice.
Right.
These are all issues that we still grapple with today in different forms.
The French Revolution is like a mirror reflecting back our own societal struggles.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And by studying it, we can gain a deeper understanding of the complexities of social change, the challenges of revolution, and the enduring power of human aspirations for a better world.
It's almost like a cautionary tale, reminding us that even the most well-intentioned revolutions can have unforeseen consequences.
I think that's a valuable takeaway.
Yeah.
The French Revolution teaches us that change is rarely easy or straightforward.
Right.
It requires constant vigilance,
Yeah.
a willingness to learn from the past, and a commitment to finding solutions that work for everyone.
Well, I have to say, this has been an incredibly insightful deep dive into the French Revolution.
It has.
It's amazing how a single book excerpt sparked such a rich conversation.
I agree. It's a testament to the enduring power of history to inform our understanding of the present.
So as we wrap up, I have one final question for you and for our listeners.
Right.
If you could travel back to 1789, knowing what you know now about the course of the revolution, what side would you be on and why?
Oh.
What would you fight for?
That's a tough one.
And what compromises would you be willing to make?
It's easy to get caught up in the romance of revolution.
Right.
But the reality is much more complex and often brutal.
Yeah.
I think the most important thing is to remember that revolutions are made by people, and people are flawed.
Right.
We need to approach social change with both idealism and pragmatism, recognizing the potential for both progress and unintended consequences.
Those are wise words.
Thank you.
And I think that's a perfect note to end on.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the French Revolution.
My pleasure.
We hope this conversation has sparked some new insights, and perhaps even some soul-searching about the challenges we face today.
Right.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning,
Yeah.
and keep diving deep.